Hello, dear friends. This is Sofya Dorinskaya, President of the International Bureau for Human Rights and Mental Health and head of the Sofya Dorinskaya Center for Medical Information. Today, I would like to touch on a topic such as suicide. Not exactly suicide, though, to be honest. I am firmly convinced that a person's body belongs only to that person. And no one has the right to decide what a person should do with their body. I will not develop this topic any further. I think everyone can expand on this idea as they see fit, but I believe that every individual should have the right to decide on the disposal of their own body, because never has a ban on a person having control over their own body ever led to anything good. But I received a letter from a young woman who had attempted suicide. Naturally, after that, she was then put into a psychiatric hospital, and so on and so forth. But during our conversation, as we talked, we came across the topic that people can be mean, people try to humiliate or insult another person. I place my complete trust in people, and this is the outcome. And it seems that everyone is a scoundrel. And there was also a conversation somewhere that I am the only decent person in my circle, and everyone else is trying to do something bad to me or to each other. And this eternal question, what is happening to us, what is happening around some people, really, for those with a sensitive soul, it can drive them to critical, some kind of actions. Today I would like to tell you about one interesting nuance. If you understand it, if you accept it, if you start moving in this direction, you will make your life much easier. I'm not saying that someone right now looking at me is thinking about suicide, although maybe there are such people. I think this will be useful for you. And also for people who are really asking themselves, what is happening to the modern world and how do I live in this world? Today I would like to reveal to you a little secret, a small nuance that is now being imposed as a world view and people are taking it for granted. There is a branch of psychology called Freudianism. It is based on a quote from Freud and generally on the data described by Freud that a person develops emotional, psychological, and mental problems. If a person has internal hidden complexes, and if they do not hide these internal hidden complexes, but instead, so to speak, express them, reveal them within themselves, report them, so to speak, and in other words, let them out into the open each time, then this will supposedly help them achieve inner balance, peace of mind, and so on. This was written back in the early 20th century by Freud, but already in the early 21st century, all of this has, honestly, I'll tell you, turned into a justification for perverse, some kind of mindsets, into the idea that all of this is considered normal. It has led to psychologists convincing people that they should, all your inner impulses, everything you have on your soul, you should report to the whole world. You shouldn't hide anything. You should just resonate like this all around you. And you should really take the time to listen to yourself, carefully noticing whether you feel good somewhere or perhaps bad somewhere else. And of course, being a naturally open person, you try to somehow open up to people around you. And you don't try to hide who you truly are inside. To report everything you have in reserve, all your thoughts, and you listen closely. What word was said to you? Did you actually feel comfortable there? And to be honest with you, I can tell you from my professional perspective as a psychiatrist, that this is exactly the kind of thing that ultimately destroys your entire life. This is the very lie that allows those around you, well, to put it bluntly, it's as if you have all your precious jewels, and out of sheer foolishness you decide, as you see it, to display them openly so that people can admire them and say, oh, your stones really do shine beautifully. Yeah, oh. And you lay them out right there on the hard pavement. And then, just 30 seconds later, you suddenly discover, to your absolute horror, that they've all been stolen by the very people you were trying to impress. It is a devastating realization that everything you valued has vanished in an instant because of that one moment of vanity. And you sit there like a fool, crying and saying, "But I was told the world was good. I just laid them out so everyone could admire them, and look, everything's been stolen. They've left me penniless." Again, let's return to Freud's thesis that internal complexes lead a person to problems, and to what this has come in the modern world. I can say that it's of the same order as in the saying, "If you make a fool pray to God, he'll smash his forehead." Most likely, yes, that's exactly how it is. There are some hidden things within a person which, if he tries to hide very strongly or does something else, it can lead him to mental problems and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean you should just, I don't know, just as if you open the door to your house and invite in, well, anyone at all. You don't do that to you. So why do you do the same thing with your inner world? Why do you do the same thing? Why do you do the same with your thoughts? Why do you do the same with your goals? Why do you do the same with your soul? You open it up, and then as a result, it's nothing but disappointment. Why did some rough people come in and trample around in dirty boots? Unfortunately, that's exactly how it is. Next point. It's very interesting what I see on social media. A huge number of friends are being added. I see this happening with other people, and then arguments start and people begin to get upset. So how exactly did we end up in a situation where we are constantly dealing with such incredibly rude people? Some individuals firmly believe that if you choose to post something on social media platforms, you should simply be able to tolerate any level of rudeness directed at you. However, I can tell you one very simple and fundamental thing. You absolutely need to choose your environment, your style of communication, and your circle of friends with extreme care. You certainly wouldn't choose to eat spoiled food from a dirty dumpster, so why on earth do you allow yourself to interact with just anyone who comes along? Why don't you ever take the time to truly evaluate the character of the people who enter into your life? It's exactly the same thing. If you can get seriously poisoned by eating questionable food, and you always take the time to read the ingredients in the grocery store, then why don't you apply that same logic to your social life? Choose your environment. Believe me, there are some communities you simply shouldn't be part of. You won't lose anything if you're not welcome in certain places, or if some people don't want to communicate with you. I'll tell you more. It's actually a great blessing if someone chooses not to interact with you. It's a great blessing if certain communities decide they don't want to see you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It means you don't need to interact with these people. And there's one more small nuance. This idea that you should listen to yourself, the words people say to you, searching for some hidden meaning, whether it resonates with you or not. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called introversion. That's called neurosis. Now I'll tell you how people have always lived, how people have achieved, and how those who reach their goals live. And if you want to live a happier life, I strongly advise you to listen to what I'm about to say. The truth is that every single person is the master of their own universe. You don't adapt to someone else. You build your own universe. You are the source of the environment around you. If you allow people to be rude to you, they will be rude to you. If you are rude yourself, people will be rude to you. If you interact with just anyone, then you will have problems in your life, as if you were eating food off the floor, as if you were eating spoiled food, to the point that it could even be fatal. And you could die if you don't choose your own environment. Your environment. And you will really feel very bad if every day you build your relationships with people based on the premise that you must be completely open, that you must honestly tell everyone everything about yourself, and that absolutely nothing can be hidden. And only then can a person be called honest. Only then can a person be called genuine, when they report absolutely everything. In reality, all of this is a lie. And I want to recommend that you read 2 books. They are not long, but if you read them, your worldview will really change significantly. The first book is by Olga Muravyova, How a Russian Nobleman Was Raised. This is an absolutely amazing book that tells about how in Russian families she tried to structure and break down by categories how children were raised. And I can tell you, nothing of what is currently said about the upbringing of Russian noble children was actually true. People never had the idea that they should go out and report all their thoughts, emotions, experiences, and plans to everyone. That never happened. On the contrary, children were always taught to be whole and overall more reserved, to display one's emotions, to show one's true attitude towards someone was always considered improper. And children were always raised to have good manners and never show their displeasure or irritation. Even if a person was interacting with their enemy, that is, they knew that the person had brought them grief, some kind of destruction, or something else. People were taught to endure hardships and not to fall apart. How did they think this could be achieved? Through physical exercise. Children were taught to withstand specifically harsh physical conditions. And if you read about how noble girls were raised in the Institute for Noble Maidens, no one pampered them. If you read about it, they lived in rather cool rooms, never slept under down comforters, life in a corset, which, in my opinion, is basically torture, and so on and so forth. In other words, people were taught to be disciplined, people were taught to be well-mannered, and people were taught to preserve their inner world, no matter what. After all, you have to understand that life used to be different. There were truly very poor people and very rich people, but the wealthy taught their children that they must know how to preserve themselves, even if they lose their wealth. And the next book that I highly recommend you read, especially if your life is, let's say, in a state of turmoil, especially if your life is currently feeling quite chaotic and uncertain. Well, to be honest, if you're in a mess and you have no idea what to do, if you've been abandoned or betrayed, fired from your job, your friends turned out to be jerks, and so on and so forth. So the second book I highly recommend to you is by Philip Dormer Stanhope, Earl of Chesterfield. Letters to his son. This man lived in the 17th century, and these are actual letters he wrote to his son, a boy. At the beginning of the book, the boy is 8 years old, and by the end, he is already a young man. The boy traveled around Europe, and his father regularly wrote him these letters. It's an absolutely amazing book. Read it, and in every letter there is truly a philosophical aspect that Chesterfield conveys in a very simple way. He writes in very plain language, and you really understand that this is age-old wisdom, and it's truly worth it for you to build your worldview on this foundation. Is it worth talking to someone about your passions, about your discomforts? Most likely it is. Most likely you can do it. But you need to know the place, you need to know the time, and you need to know the person you are trusting with this. What I said can also be applied from a purely practical point of view. If you have good manners, it doesn't mean that a person who guards their inner world is a grump. He stands in the corner and doesn't talk to anyone. No, good manners can be practiced. Smiles can be practiced. How to communicate, how to be pleasant to other people. All of this can be practiced. The most amazing thing is that Chesterfield, he explains how his son should train his manners not only in libraries. So you need to go out and interact with people. You definitely need to choose a social circle to move in. Observe what's happening around you. In other words, read this book. So here is a small but important nuance to consider. If you can successfully train yourself in the art of good manners, you will effectively give yourself much more time to really get to know your new surroundings properly. Because if you, to put it bluntly, have no filter, if you come in and immediately tell everyone who you are and what you're about, You have absolutely no idea what kind of people are around you. These are people you might be seeing for the first or second time in your life. You don't know these people's backgrounds, you don't know their life principles, you don't even know whether you should trust them or not. That's why, if you are able to hide your inner world, if you are fortunate enough to choose your own social circle, if you consistently practice good manners, if you maintain pleasant and welcoming manners, and if you carry yourself with true integrity, if you are able to avoid conflict specifically in such personal interactions, then at the very least, you will give yourself time to observe the people around you. And to some extent, or maybe even to a very large extent, or perhaps entirely, you will avoid those mistakes where you start interacting with the wrong people, when you trust the wrong people, and in the end, you end up with a ruined life. I also want to say that since we really do have more and more people coming to us for correction at the Sofya Dorinskaya Center for Medical Information can be done, and I can say that all of this is possible if your body is healthy. Because there are neurotic and psychotic states when you have truly been driven to them. But if a person eats very poorly, and as we are seeing now, young people are coming to us with acute life-threatening deficiency conditions, if these issues are not resolved, then it can already be considered a pathological condition. Indeed, for people in this state, it is very difficult to control themselves. Therefore, if you feel that even simple exercises and good manners are very difficult for you, because if you can no longer restrain these inner impulses, then you should contact us at the Sofya Dorinskaya Center for Medical Information so that we can determine whether you have nutrient deficiencies or not, help you eliminate them, and provide recommendations for addressing them. And so when your body is healthy, when you no longer have these physical, painful, neurotic, or psychotic conditions, then you can take control of yourself, you can train yourself, and your life will truly become much better, much more stable, and it can be a happy one. This was Sofya Dorinskaya with you. All the best. Goodbye.